welcome home. It's Irish Family History with curious news and notes, celebrating our 4th year of this podcast at the Irish Roots Cafe, where every day's a holiday and there's always room for one more. One of 6 broadcast series from the head school at irishroots.com. I'm Mike OLaughlin, your host, publisher of rare Irish books and information on every county in Ireland since 1978. Be sure to read our blog, complete with links to click on from this podcast, and search our master index and books for free. Molly, wet the tea, Katie, bar the door, Sweeney, clear that floor, and bring out the Irish dancers. It's time we get this show on the road. Well, it's show number 154, and among today's topics at the Irish Roots Cafe, the family name of the day, Callan, or it could be Mac Callan, I think. Number 2, County Monaghan is the county of the week. Number 3, the Song and Recitation Festival is about to begin. Number 4, new transportation in the west of Ireland. Number 5, why Tim Murphy climbed a tree and how it saved America. Number 6, the new Irish breakfast. Number 7, new podcast sections here at the cafe. Free, small fee, and member only. Stay tuned for more. We're going to have a whole bunch. And remember, we've also got an enhanced podcast, just like this podcast, but it also has pictures and enhanced links on it where you can just click on it and go to maybe something we're talking about in the podcast. Well, what's happening here at the cafe this week? Well, hey, I told you we finally put together those new podcast section for the Irish Family History Show. The shows in the beginning will always be free, and it's as they get older, we archive them into the other sections, and that way it helps support the webpage and keeps us going just like your memberships do. And that is just a new little wrinkle we're just now starting to add. And number 2, we're about ready to turn our attention to the Irish Song and Recitation Festival podcast for a new season. And we should have some songs and recitations ready to go in a month or so. So if you want to enter, hey, take a listen to that podcast and let us know. And you can either come to the cafe and be recorded with the history and the song, an old song, or you might even want to try some Sean Nose entries because we've started some of that now. We even got a Sean Nose song session going on every other week. And number 3, I got a note from Kathleen Swepson of Australia, and she says she's researching her great-grandparents Fitzpatrick of Belturbet, County Cavan, and Hennessy of Mullahone, County Tipperary, and wants a membership and wondered if she was an Australian, since she is Australian, if she was eligible to become a member. And of course, you're eligible to become a member. As a matter of fact, the top 5 countries from which our members come are the U.S., Canada, Australia, England, and Ireland. So everybody's welcome. We even have had a few from Singapore and South Africa and some really different places. So feel free to jump on in and help us out. Well, now it's time for our 1-minute podcast, and today's excerpt is going to be from the Hedgerow History of Ireland, episode 16, and we're going to include a little note on the land offerings that were made in Ireland to the Protestant population, mainly in the 17th century. So listen on here to our excerpt from that podcast, and I think you'll find it interesting. Well, you know that that Act for Adventurers was very important because it actually promised 2.5 million acres for Protestant investors. So these folks would come over, and it wasn't just a war about religion or about the crown. This was about personal wealth of these adventurers who came over, and they were promised this land. So you see this theme running out throughout the whole war. They came there for to increase their wealth and to obtain land and estates, and they weren't going to be put off because they were promised it, quite quickly, readily, and in the open. So that led to debates throughout the rest of the century.
Sure, it did. And who's getting land? And they're the ones who stayed in England yet would own the land in Ireland. That became, again, another difficulty as time went on. We mentioned in the last segment about O'Neill, Hugh O'Neill, and then we said, well, there was Owen Roe O'Neill.
Well, that's the end of the segment there. You can listen to that whole episode on that podcast at number 16 for the Irish hedgerow history of Ireland. And we're getting ready to move on here in just a second to the County Monaghan County of the Month. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's in the County Monaghan Genealogy and Family History Notes book and do an extract from that. But I hope you're liking these 1 minute podcasts. We take them each week or each episode, one from one of our 6 or 7 other podcast series, and let you share them. And if you like it, you might want to check into those podcasts and subscribe to them. You can do that either on our webpage or on iTunes. And we've got all the episodes on our pages here, and iTunes has select samples. Well, today we've got the County Monaghan Genealogy and Family History Notes book, and that's part of the Irish Families Project that I put together. We've got about 34 volumes in all, and at least one on every county, and we've got 2 books on a few counties like Clare, Kerry, Galway, and 1 or 2 others. But before I get going too far here, let's take a look at an extract, and we see a few of the things. What were the most common families in the 19th century? Well, they were families like Duffy and Connolly and McKenna and Smith, Martin, McCabe, Quinn, McGuire, Murray, Woods. Of course, those names could show up in other counties too, but they were the most numerous in the 19th century when most of the Irish came abroad. And some of those old Monaghan families, when you start reading through the books, well, they're going to mention O'Byrne and Boylan and McWard and Traynor and McArdle and McPhillip, which of course can also be Phillips. And some of the settler names that you often see cited in the county are Davidson and Stewart, Mackenzie, Cameron, Buchanan, Walker, Patterson, Sinclair, and McCutcheon. So that gives you an idea of the backdrop of some of the names there, some of the old Irish names and some of the new settler names, just to give you a little taste. And of course, there are existing returns for the census of 1659 in Monaghan, and that census is really helpful in showing you the spellings of family names and place names at that time in history, because place names change just like the surnames changed, and you got to keep your eyes open. That census is organized by parish and townland and the name of the titulado, which is usually a pretty important person in the area, we assume, and it gives the count of the English and Irish settlers in the area. And you may not find a specific single name of the family you're looking for, but it does give you the main Irish families by barony and how many of them they found within that barony, so you can pinpoint your search. It's just one more clue in the mystery of Irish family research. And we've also got, we actually include some pedigrees for Clancy of Dartry, McKinney of Trua, Kane of Drumreask, Duffy, Lawler, and McMahon of Drumgiston. And we also have a list of forth-fitting proprietors in the 17th century. And that brings us to the end of the little Monaghan excerpt. I've got a link in the blog if you want more information, and we've got more details there. Now it's time for Magnificent 7. Hey, remember, a little bit later, we're going to tell you how Tim Murphy saved America, and that's from the earliest days here in America. And right now, though, it's time for the Magnificent 7 that we've got. Number 1, Gerald Gerard Tobin of Scottsdale, Arizona, your County Waterford genealogy book shipped. Jeff Cleveland of Murrieta, California, your County Clare book shipped. Member Lydia Moser of Kings Park, New York, your Mac Mick and O Names book in Ireland, Scotland, and America has shipped. Number 4, Sue Ellen Duquesne of Lake Park, Florida, your book of Irish families, great and small, shipped. Number 5, Anthony Nash of Sydney, Australia, welcome as a full member searching for the John Nash. And number 6, Amber King of Abilene, Texas, your Roscommon book, Irish family book, Surnames of Ireland and Beginner's Guide have shipped. That means you're the patron of the week. Number 7, Patricia McDougall of Southbury, Connecticut, your County Cavan and County Longford books have shipped. So that brings us up to date with the magnificent 7 for the day. And I want to remind you that I have to thank each and every member and each and every patron who has purchased a book, because without you, I couldn't do these podcasts, not just the genealogy podcast, but the history podcast and the song podcast, the whole bit. We're breaking some world records here with this, even though we're the smallest outfit that could possibly be. So I appreciate your help, and do become a member if you can. Now it's time. We're moving on up to the Irish family name of the day. Well, the family name of the day is Callan, and that's in honor of member Mary Coyne of Thorndale, Pennsylvania, searching for Callan of Monaghan, Coyne of Roscommon, Meagher of Tipperary, and Osborne of Limerick. You know, there's several different spellings of the name, and of course it can end with an EN or an AN or an IN. You can put a Mac before it, so it's MacAllan or MacCallan. And of course, you'll even find in history some O'Callans. So keep your eyes open. Remember, it's a search. And there's also several variant spelling groups that the name's confused with. And those groups are 2136, 304, 222, 223, 305, and 2229. So if you're on the hunt and you've got a mystery, it might help you to look at that. That's taken from the guide to the various spellings of Irish family names. We have a link on the blog. We take a quick look at the history of the name. The name of O'Callan was principal in County Monaghan, and Callan in Dublin, and McCallan was a principal name of Fermanagh in the census of 1659. But remember, those spellings can change over time, and there's many variant spelling groups like we mentioned. You can even get confused with names like Callanan and Calhoun and Calnan and Callan and Cahoon, Collins, Callan, Quillan. So, you know, you might need to make a DNA test to be just positive of who you descended from. Now, our member is researching Callan of Monaghan, which is fortunate because the name is traditionally linked there, and you might find some information. We also have further name choices that are given in the County Monaghan genealogy book. And, you know, we looked in that book, and in the very same barony within the county, you'll find the names of O'Callan and MacCallan, and they're given in some numbers. So there could have been just some confusion by the census takers, too. But alongside those names, you're going to find names like O'Cullen and McCullen, which, of course, can be interchanged with O'Callan and McCallan, all in 17th century Monaghan. And remember, those census takers, they might have not been treated kindly by some of the natives who were giving out their names. So you never know what kind of shenanigans might be going on there. We took a look at the Irish family coats of arms from the Irish Book of Arms, and a brief look in that work says, well, we don't find that Callan name given in the Irish Book of Arms, but that's okay. Most of the Irish names really aren't in the real Irish Book of Arms. It reminds me to tell you, coming up later in this episode, how much do you think one surviving flag of the Easter Rebellion in Dublin was estimated to be worth? We're going to see that. I got a little auction catalog in the mail, and I was really surprised. But then the next week, I was even surprised again by what they said about the first flag, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. We're now going to take a look at some of the sources for the name, and perhaps you can use that for sources for the name you're looking for. Well, if we take a look at the Free Master Online Index at irishroots.com, we're going to see about, 60 listings for the name or the root of the name. That includes our county books on Dublin and Donegal and Antrim and Mayo and Armagh and Monaghan. And we find a J. Callan in Irish Families on the California Trail. That's J period, the initial. And we find Mac Callan and Callan in the County Fermanagh Genealogy Notes book. And Callan in the Scottish Macs, and O'Callan also found in the Annals of Ireland by the Four Masters. Now, that's always a good sign for a researcher when you find your name in that work, because that's one of the classics. Hey, remember, if you do go and type your name in that Free Master Index on our webpage, remember to leave off the Mac or O in front of the name when typing your name in. That way all the little variants with or without that so-called prefix will show up. Well, that does it for the official name research there. Now we're going to move on to our next segment, which is always a lot of fun. You never know what we're going to pull up. We'll have something on names, something for fun, and something just for the newsworthiness of it all. So let me go pull that out here of the bin, and we'll be right back. Well, it's Around the World in Irish Ways, the web pages and videos of the month. What do we have here? Well, number one, the Callan message board, and they've got a note there for Callan from Monaghan, Ireland. You might want to see that. That's from the boards at Ancestry.com. We've got a link on the blog. You get there right away by poking on it. Number two, Limerick Galway rail line reopens. That's after quite a while, so they're going. If you're a visitor in Ireland, there's a good quick way to travel. You hop on the train and it's done. So there's one more piece of good news for visitors. Number three, new doubts over the Easter Rising flag. Well, I'll give you the story in a minute, but that talks about how they think this flag might have been preposterous. Number four, the America, the Story of Us. And it's a preview, some movie previews of that episode that's running. I think it's on Sunday nights. I thought it would be an interesting movie, but you know what? They're including all the ethnic groups, including the Irish. And there's an interesting little note that they happen to mention about good old Tim Murphy and the Irish, and how Tim Murphy, he was attached to, what was that, Morgan Rifles? And he played a major role in the revolution, according to this special. So you're going to have to listen to that to be sure, and check out just what it was all about. That's about it for now, but more and more, I'm going to have to get back to make some more videos. We've got 14 or 15 of them done, but now that I know how to do it, I ought to make some better ones and have appropriate lighting and better video, and don't you think now? Hey, but now we're moving up to the favorite segment, everybody's favorite segment, our last segment, Curious News and Notes. Well, let's hear some of the Irish news here today. I was talking about that new TV special on America, The Story of Us, and it noted that sharpshooter Tim Murphy, an illiterate from Ireland, hey, maybe he just didn't know how to speak English or write English, but maybe he could write Irish Gaelic. But he was the sniper with the Morgan Rifles who downed the British officer, turning the tide of the American Revolution in our favor. 3 cheers for the illiterate Irish who came to America, and I bet he spoke it. He spoke Irish and English, probably had at least 2 languages down, and they called him illiterate. Number 2, a recent study shows that the Irish are skipping breakfast in order to get more sleep or in order to get to work early. Take your pick. I guess we will have to redefine the Irish breakfast, which now is relegated to a simple piece of toast for some. And I know when you're a traveler, you like to hear those words, full Irish breakfast, because you got bacon and eggs and sausage and pudding and toast and muffins and jam and gosh, a few other things, but now that you may just wake up in the morning and find a piece of toast on your plate. Boy, would that be a disappointment. Hey, number 3, it was just 50 years ago that Irish television was established with the coming of Radio Éireann, and it all started in April of 1960, and the Irish radio began a lot earlier, way back in 1926. But if you read some of the news stories, many people were suspicious of any machine that could see you by wireless, and some thought if you believed in it, you were a lunatic. Number 4, Limerick to Galway rail line runs for the first time in 34 years. It's going to cover Innis and Gort and Athenry and 6 Mile Bridge. I've got a link to another article on the blog in addition to the one I just cited earlier. So if you're doing traveling, you might want to check it out. And that brings us to number 5. My latest auction catalog showed the only known surviving flag from the Easter Rising in Dublin, which led to Irish independence, don't you know? That flag was green, white, and gold, and had an estimated value of over 500,000 pounds or euros. I can't remember. But no one would have dreamed anybody would have valued that flag at that much. And but you know what? The next week I was reading a story, and they did some secret photography, in-depth imaging on that flag, and there was little notes on there that said, they had names of people that were from much later days in Ireland, and they're thinking maybe that flag isn't quite as old as the folks selling it thought. I bet they used an eraser, and it didn't erase all that ink out. Oh boy, but that does it for this week. We've got all kinds of new things going on, and remember, contact me or get ready to do a little song if you want to go on the Irish Song and Recitation Festival this year. We've got a Sean Nose class starting up here. I think we're going to do it every 2 weeks. That's the old Irish songs like A Roisin Nabio Bro Nort Na Casani. That's all for today, folks. Joseph, warm up those pipes. Remember, we have a broadcast series on Irish song and recitation, on local history of the Irish in America, and on 2,000 years of Irish history, as well as on the counties, and something special coming up on Irish language, I hope. We've got all that and more at our head school at irishroots.com. And we've been known to appear, exhibit, teach, and even sing for your special events. Be sure to book in advance if it's important, and write me at my American address at Irish Roots Cafe, Box 7575, Kansas City, Missouri, 64116. Leave a message by phone at 816-256-3360. Reach me on my webpage at irishroots.com. Skype me at the Irish Roots Cafe. Get me on MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, and Irish Central. Members foot the bill, so they get first priority, but we're open to all. And by the way, a big thank you to all of our members. And away.